100 degrees with 100% humidity. And they're standing on concrete and a hill, Coach.
Tell them all we're still singing Country Roads, man.
Country roads,
You got it.
take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads. Coach, it hits the same as it did, I assume, 50 years ago. But let's talk about this particular game. It's a massive one for both West Virginia and for Penn State. As somebody who watches film on every school in the country, what do you see being the determining factor in this game tomorrow, Coach?
Well, I think that West Virginia's proven that they can run the ball effectively against just about anybody they play. I think that's going to be the challenge for them against Penn State. Penn State, pretty good defensive team, and they like to pressure a lot and create negative plays. So I think if the quarterback for West Virginia can create a little balance in the game for them, be able to throw the ball effectively, that's going to be that'll have a huge impact on the game.
Okay, so obviously Garrett Green's going to run wild. It's been ringing through these hollers and hills all morning, and I assume all offseason, because the expectations are through the roof. The buzz is palpable. We're here on Friday in the middle of like Life Sciences Building is not supposed to host a show or an event, but they put it together, and these people have showed up. Whenever you're James Franklin in Penn State, and this is your opener, and you know how big it is on the other sideline, what is your message to the team? What do you think Penn State's feeling about this weekend? And how would you settle the boys down knowing a buzzsaw is waiting for them in Morgantown?
Well, I think you said it right there. There's a buzzsaw in Morgantown. Man, it's a hard place to play. The fans there have great passion. It's going to make it be very difficult for Penn State, especially in the opener, to manage the noise, to sort of manage the game, to be able to stay focused on execution and not get sidetracked on any of the other things that are going on, because it's going to be difficult for them. And you're always worried as a coach in the first game about how your team's going to execute, and that's going to be really, really the challenge for them playing on the road at West Virginia in the first game.
Yeah, it's a noon kickoff, too. Does that change anything, Coach? Because it's a massive game, and I know with Fox and Big Noon Kickoff, this is where primetime games have now getting slotted. But like night in Morgantown is how I thought this game was going to go. Noon, is that better for the team that is ranked higher, lower, home team, away team? What do you think about that, the timing of it all?
Well, I really think that, and there's some statistics going. Maybe it's the passion of the crowd. I don't know what it is. I personally never like to play at noon because I like players to be in a rhythm of when they practice and all that. But I can't tell you if it's an advantage or a disadvantage, but some people like to get up and play and get it going and get it on, and I bet you West Virginia feels that way about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Coach, to be clear, they opened a lot of the bars around here at 8 a.m. this morning, so that game being at noon might actually be like a safety net for these people to survive, because the game's over at 3:30. Then we got another 12 hours to celebrate this thing. Woo. Morgantown could be upside down. You talk about first game and seeing what your team does. Let's talk about Colorado last night. And I know you and Coach Prime are obviously close because of Aflac, and this entire thing. What did you see from that team last night? And are last year's issues the same issues that they're probably going to have this year? That's what everybody on the internet's saying, Coach.
Well, I think that a couple things. First of all, I think they got better skill guys to go with the quarterback, which I think is going to be important. I think they need to try to improve their ability to run the ball because they didn't have much balance last night, which showed up at the end of the game when they couldn't take the air out of it and gave the ball back to North Dakota State. I do think their defense might be a little bit improved. Now, whether it's good enough, I don't know. But you have to be a really good defense to play with that kind of offense who has to throw the ball all the time. Just like they probably gave up 90 yards at the end of the game that the other team shouldn't have ever had the ball. So, I think they're improved. Are they improved enough to have a winning season? I hope so.
Coach, are you able to, with the modern day, and you got to experience it a little bit with the transfer portal and NIL, and I think they said 42 incoming players onto that Colorado roster. Are you able to make a flip in one offseason in modern football, you think? Just automatically flip everything you have? And because they didn't win a lot of games last year, which is being thrown out a lot last night after the way that game went against North Dakota State. Do you think with the way the transfer portal is, with the way they've utilized it, can you become a very successful program almost overnight with this transfer portal?
Well, I think the transfer portal helps because it gives you another resource to bring in players to the program. But the thing about the transfer portal is, are you bringing the right guys in? Are you bringing the right kind of guys in? Are these guys going to fit into your culture and do things the way you want them done? How are they going to buy into your organization? How's it going to fit in with the other players you have on your team? So I think when you have a lot of guys in the transfer, the transition of how those guys fit is really the most important thing.
Yeah, in picking the right guys and recruiting and in the transfer portal, I think you only have like a week to talk to some guys, right? Because they're making a decision. It's like, how do you know? How do you not know? I guess you just got to build an NFL factory in the state of Alabama, which this West Virginia boy was able to accomplish. Connor has a question for you, Coach.
Coach, speaking of flipping teams, after week one, I feel like a lot is revealed. I mean, Florida State, of course, you know, they lose to Georgia Tech, and then you even look at a team like NC State that started real slow and then came on in the fourth quarter last night. How much do these college teams after week one kind of change their philosophy? Is there a lot of that? Obviously, last year with Milroe, you know, he went to the bench for a little with you and then came back and kind of exploded the rest of the season for you guys. But how much does that happen to these teams, and how often does it happen for a lot of these programs to kind of change their philosophy after, you know, maybe a down week to start the season?
Right. I think you have to figure out who you are. I think sometimes, you know, you think coming out of practice that you're something that maybe you're not. And when you get in a game, you see that, you know, this is not who we are. We got to figure out who we are. And each player on your team needs to figure out who they are and what they have to do to play winning football. So you have to figure it out as a coach. How do we play winning football with this group? What kind of system do we have to feature the players that we have? And the players got to figure out, what do I have to do to play winning football, and go out and work on it so that you can make the improvement. I think our team last year did a great job of that. After losing to Texas and playing horrible at South Florida and then being able to get in the playoffs, I think they did a really good job of self-assessing and making improvements that were necessary for them to be a good team.
The Milroe bouncing back after that whole thing, too, was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
You know, that
Incredible.
was awesome to watch. The way it was handled, you know, and I feel like that's another, like, way you coached. You know, you send a message to the entire team, and I think you even told us whenever you were doing the weekly spot last year, you said, like, let's see how he handles it. Let's see how he matures. Let's see how he bounces back. And I think that really brought the entire team together, which is once again why you're the GOAT. And speaking of GOATs, the greatest mountaineer of all time, Pat White, has a question for you, Coach Saban.
Coach Saban, I'm going to take you back a little bit. You may or may not recall this, but coming out of high school, I was committed to you all.
I recall it. Don't worry about that. I damn sure recall it.
and flipped and went to West Virginia. My first question is, let's go Mountaineers, of course. My first question would be, how long would I have lasted at quarterback before you put me in the secondary backpedaling? And then my second question is, what are your thoughts on the evolution of the quarterback?
Well, you know, I think it's, first of all, the evolution of the quarterback is fantastic. I think, you know, the spread offense, it's beneficial to have a more athletic guy playing quarterback, which you obviously did a tremendous job of, and Rich did a great job. Rodriguez did a great job of utilizing that. But I would have never moved you from quarterback unless you saw that you could have a better future at another position. I never made anybody in our program ever play something they didn't want to play. So you could have stayed at quarterback and may have been a great quarterback at LSU or wherever we were at the time, but I would have never made you play a position that you didn't want to play. Now, you never believed me then, but I got no reason now. I mean, I'm this old guy that's just, you know, going fishing every now and then. So I'm telling you the truth. So I would have never moved you unless you wanted to move and you saw you had a better future at another position.
Hey, Pat, I assume that is a question you've wanted to ask Coach Saban for a long time.
Very long time.
And I would like to tell you, Coach, I don't care if you would have moved him or wouldn't have moved him. The fact that he thought you might have moved him and he ended up in West Virginia, we are all very thankful for.
Hell yeah.
We are all very, very thankful for. You're talking about a whole new.
If he had to go anywhere besides LSU, I'm glad he went to West Virginia, and I was really, really proud of the kind of program that he had, or performance that he had there, and the kind of career that he had there. Really proud of him.
You should have seen the leadership too, Coach. I mean, this dude had the entire state obviously in his palm. He could have been an asshole. He could have been arrogant. Instead, all he was giving to the entire locker room. You know all these NIL deals we're seeing where these quarterbacks are gifting people everything? Pat White would have gave back all of his money to the locker room, and we know that. And that is why I think we all love you so much, and we'll run through a wall for you for the rest of your life. You need to know that.
Hell yeah.
Tone Diggs has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, we had Garrett Green on earlier, and he said his favorite quarterback growing up was Johnny Manziel. And if I remember correctly, you guys had to go into Texas A&M when Manziel basically started his Heisman run and didn't have an easy time with Manziel. What is it about quarterbacks like Garrett Green and Manziel that can make something out of nothing that give these great defenses like Penn State has so much trouble?
Well, what always gave us the most trouble, which I can speak for, is, Johnny Manziel beat us at Alabama, playing in our stadium, his first year starting as a quarterback. And, we play a lot of match coverage and a lot of man-to-man, so people have their back to the quarterback. More people have their back to the quarterback. So if you don't have a really athletic front that can manage the quarterback scrambling, he killed us running. So then the next year, we had this, 49-48 game that we won, which he was phenomenal in, again. And Evans was his best receiver, and he had over 200 yards. So Johnny could throw it, but his ability to scramble and run and make plays, and how you had to try to, contain him from being able to run, and Pat was the same way, but they can still throw. So you're compromising the coverage part of what you do for trying to make sure the quarterback doesn't kill you running and scrambling.
Why do you think it's because you coached throughout all the eras, obviously at the highest of level, and Jalen Milroe, your last quarterback that you coached, was very much a guy that. Why do you think people are so hesitant to maybe move to this style of football? Doesn't it seemingly make sense to have the guy that touches the ball the most be the most electrifying player on the field? Why has there always been a hesitance, you think, Coach?
I'd never been hesitant to have an athletic guy play quarterback. I think, people don't want the quarterback to get hurt, so they think they're protecting him by not running him, which if the guy's an effective runner, then you're making a mistake and really holding the guy back from being all that he can be as a player. And I think in the old days of football, it was more run the ball, and the quarterback was a passer. And that was like how people evaluated quarterbacks. But that's not the way it is anymore. I mean, there's too many effective ways. A lot of this zone read is nothing more than option football. It just doesn't look like it. But there is a pitch man. There's somebody in the flat. There is a quarterback pulling the ball. Somebody's got to be able to take him and be athletic enough to take him. And you have the option to throw it out there to the pitch man. So having an athletic quarterback is a huge advantage. And I think Jalen Milroe is going to have a fantastic year this year because he's become a better passer. He's a better processor now, and he still has the athleticism to make great plays with his feet.
Hey, Coach, whenever you think about that read option, how sweet is it to have a fullback that can run like a 4.6, weighs 265, will chug a 30-pack, and also bust his head open as one of the options? And did you know of the great beer truck Owen Schmidt whenever he was in school?
I did not.
Oh, Coach. Oh.
But if you have an athletic H-back guy to do this stuff, it's a pain for the defense now because the linebackers got to fall back and cover that guy. It changes gaps for everybody. So it is a pain, and you got to have experienced players to be able to do it.
Coach, he would drink 50 beers a night, too. I mean, it's just like a whole different animal. It feels like the fullback position is kind of obsolete, but then you see like Juszczyk, and you see Patrick Ricard, and you see some offense that utilize it. The fullback's never going to disappear.
Nope.
Owen Schmidt highlights are always going to bang, always going to hit, and you're always going to remember. You should see what happened after all these highlights. That was almost even more impressive. Hang cleaning 500-plus pounds. Absolute icon.
Damn.
Ty Schmidt has a question for you, Coach.
Coach, going back to this game in Morgantown tomorrow, if you're Neil Brown, with all the extra hoopla that's going on around this game, with our show being here, obviously Pat mentioned big noon kickoff being there tomorrow, kind of similar to last year when you guys were playing Texas, game days there. Everyone is talking about how massive of a game this is. Tomorrow is the biggest game in Morgantown since 1998. How do you manage, your players playing with the right level of emotion and not getting kind of too hyped up or burning themselves out early, obviously, when it's going to be a dogfight for 4 quarters?
Well, that's what you always worry about, I think, as a coach is, how much are they distracted by what's happening around them? Because some guys that aren't very mature get very distracted by game day being there, the crowd, all the hoopla that goes around the game. So they're not focusing for the wrong reasons. And then you got some guys that are great competitors that get very anxious because they want to play so well they can taste it, and that really doesn't help them play well. So getting everybody kind of having the right psychological disposition about focusing on what's in front of them, not worrying about all the other stuff, and being in not too high, not too low, but not playing with emotion, but being intense, and play with emotion, but don't be emotional, I guess is a better way to say it, because when you're emotional, you make bad decisions.
I'll tell you what, Coach, what about when you're drunk, like last Friday?
Right.
What about when you're a little boozed up because you're...
I was trying to manage you the best I could.
You really were, Coach, and I appreciate that, but there was no chance. There was absolutely no chance in Dublin, and it feels like it's starting to become a similar type of atmosphere here in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Oh, boy.
I can't wait to get down to you in Texas, Coach. I can't wait to get down there. Owen Schmidt has a question for you, Coach.
Coach, would have been an absolute honor to play for you. Question. Today's NIL transfer portal, is there room for walk-on players anymore in the game?
Well, it really is a concern to me because some of the things moving forward that have been presented is that all players would be on scholarship and there'd be no opportunities for walk-ons. And, I think that's not good. And it's all participation number thing that people are trying to control. But there's been so many guys that have been walk-ons who got scholarships Rashad Johnson played, 10 years in the league, was a walk-on at Alabama, for us. And, to not be able to offer those opportunities to guys, I think is, it's just very unfortunate. And I hate it because, those are the kind of guys you want on your team, man. They're motivated the right way. They're working hard every day. They're trying to prove something, and not to be able to give them the opportunity to do that, I don't think is something that's good for college sports.
Owen Schmidt was a walk-on here. He left a legend. Will always be, heralded a hero around Morgantown. I mean, those are the stories. College football has obviously the pageantry and the big games and the big stories. The walk-on who paid their own way, worked as a bouncer at a club, then got on the team, then started, then did so much that you get a scholarship, and then you go on and make it to the NFL. Like, that's a story that programs talk about forever. So I hope we're able to figure out a way to keep that in there. And, Coach, I'm about to hop on a bird here in about 2, 3, maybe 4 hours, depending upon how this whole thing goes after the show to get down to you. I can't wait for tomorrow. Largest game day in the history of Week 0. And do you know why? Do you know why, Coach?
I guess because it was in Dublin, Ireland.
No, it's because of you, brother. You are incredible on television.
Hell yeah.
You are incredible on television, which leads me to Connor's question for you, pal.
Yeah, Coach, you got to be honest with us here. Did you call like Glenn Powell or Brad Pitt before your Verbo commercial? Because the acting in that thing by you was just second to none. I don't know how you did it.
No, Pat's my idol. He helps me on TV sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And, I was trying to be like him on that commercial. But, the one thing Miss Terry said is I didn't have to do any acting in that commercial. That's just the kind of jerk I always am.
All right, hey, whatever works, brother. It's all working, and we can't thank you enough. I'll see you down in Texas tomorrow morning. You're the man. From any message to West Virginia here before we let you go?
Go Mountaineers, man. Let's go.